I'm Betty Banjack, and this is Look Who's Cooking. And today we're going to do a little variation on a few things. We all love pasta. We all eat tons of pasta. But basically, we consider pasta more of an Italian dish or a middle Mediterranean dish. But many of the other cultures in the world have different forms of dough. And like the Slavic community, which, of course, I'm being Hungarian and being Slovak, I grew up on this kind of food, and they use a lot of noodles in their cooking. And I assume it was a very economical way to cook at one time. Today, people usually like this kind of food because they remember it from their childhood, or they want to remember it from their childhood. Of course, no one makes it like Mom. I mean, that's no matter what you say. A couple moms don't cook so well, so maybe there's a couple people that would like to have somebody else's thing. The first thing we're going to make today is cabbage and noodles. Now, I don't know if it's just the Slavic world that eats cabbage and noodles, but a good bit of it does, and they call this in Hungarian halushka. Halushki. Halushka is, I believe, the Slovak way of saying it. I get a little mixed up. Like I said, I grew up my mother's family is Hungarian, my father's family is Slovak, and they all cook alike. I mean, the dishes are the same, but they all have little different names. And what I'm going to start first with is I'm going to put the burner on. Remember this little burner? We still have it. It's been hanging on forever. It's just wonderful since we don't have the kitchen here at the high school. As you all remember, we're cooking out of the Norristown area television studio, the school studio, and we've been doing that very successfully for quite a while. But our equipment hasn't changed too much. We have the independent burners, no running water, but we'll get it someday. First, I'm going to put in about a half a stick of butter. I know in today's society and the way we eat and all, everyone's substituting oil for butter. But if you make this with oil, not really good. I mean, it's just not good. So as I melt that, I'm going to take an onion. Onions are also another mainstay of cooking I grew up with. And it doesn't have to be chopped fine or anything. You can do that, but it doesn't have to be. Nice thin slices will do it. I don't know if you can hear that butter sizzling, but the butter's starting to sizzle. Again, if you make this and put this with hot olive oil, it's just not going to taste the same. It's going to become greasy. I don't know if we can get that butter. It's really bubbling up. And then we're going to add the onions. Get some more. People tend to like onions and everything. Let's get them all in. Let's not waste anything here. This is getting a little too brown, a little too fast, but this will be wonderful when we put the cabbage in. I'm going to put in a little more butter. Just to I can't talk, to thin it out. Then we're going to take cabbage. There is a set recipe for this, but most people don't use it because it depends on what you have, how many people you want to feed, what you want to do with it. And then we take cabbage, I core part of it, and we're going to cut the cabbage as thin as we can. You can do this on a mandolin. You all know what a mandolin is, besides being an instrument of music. It's one of those shredders that cut vegetables and fruits very fine. I'm gonna, it's a little hot. I'm going to get a little bit of the cabbage in because it's browning very fast. You just put it in. It doesn't matter what kind of cabbage you use. I mean, like, it's regular head cabbage, but whether it's white or green, it doesn't really matter. It's whatever you can get, the best price you can get it for. My mother is a master at this. My mother can cut this cabbage, I can't tell you how thin. And I do believe the thinner it is, probably the tastier it is. So let's say we're going to have to, let me get a fork here. Oh, I'll use this. But I think, well, I believe noodles were a very filling food for a very economical price all over the world at some given time. And I also believe the type of dough that is used in individual dishes depends on, again, the country it comes from and how they use it and what they use it with. I mean, I don't think that cabbage and linguine would be too good. I just think. But cabbage and the flat broad noodles that I use here. Now, if you're really good and you don't want to mess, and you have a lot of time, what you need to do is make your own noodles. People do that all the time. It's a real art. And it's very time consuming. Personally, I think it's very time consuming. And because there's only me in my household, I don't want to take the time to make those noodles. I will if I have company or something, but I just don't care to take that kind of time when you can buy noodles just as good and just as cheap. Cheaper. It takes a lot of money. My grandmother and people of my grandmother's era made wonderful dough, and I mean, it was a major project. They had it as thin as a tablecloth. I remember one time, my cousin came running in and thought it was her dough that was laying over the table very thin. Well, she thought it was a tablecloth, and she put down something hot or whatever it was, and it sort of bubbled up, and my grandmother was ready to kill her, and it turned out that she just mistook that very fine dough for a tablecloth. And it's a real art, and I have another friend, Marianne, whose mother took days to make it, draped her room in white sheets and everything, so she would just make what she considered the perfect, pure noodles. I keep wanting to say pasta because we say pasta so much anymore, but not. This is cooking down. The finer you cut this, the better, quicker it cooks down also. But it's not. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some. I cook these at home, and look what happened. But they'll cook out. Oh, come on, guys. As they get warm, they'll break apart. And this is really a nice meal for the cold season that's coming up, and it's not only makes you feel good, it makes you feel good because it tastes good, number one, but it's a warm meal. You could make this in the summer, but it's just It's almost unheard of. You know how you get certain dishes for a certain time of the year? Well, this dish is a cold weather dish. Something else I like to mention, I know of someone who puts garlic in this. And it's one of the few times I'll tell you garlic does not taste good in something. So I'll have to add a little salt and pepper. I'm using little salt and pepper shakers to get it more evenly distributed. Sometimes when you put pinches in, it doesn't quite get as even. Oh, if nothing else, it smells good. I'm going to move this over and let it. Let's get. I think I better use pot holders. I'm really bad, but I don't want to get burnt. Put that there. And when I'm going to let that continue to cook, there is a lid to that somewhere. Well, I don't know what happened to the lid. I'll just let it cook without the lid. I think it is smelling good. I'm going to look for the lid again. Got it. Things seem to cook just a little faster with the lid. The next noodles that I'm going to work with is what they call poppy seed noodles, or some people call them dirty face noodles. Because with the poppy, it makes this, you'll see. I'm going to put this on, and I'm going to take some milk or cream or half and half, whatever you prefer. You can even do this with low fat. And I'm going to get that up and going, to scald it, to cook it a little. I have to be honest, I have to look at my cookbook sometime. They are my cookbooks, but I don't remember every recipe. I have 3 cookbooks out, and I don't remember every recipe, and I want to make sure that I get everything in there, because that would be terrible to miss a great ingredient. So I'm going to take but a second and get rid of some of this stuff. You know, I had mentioned this before in passing, but I really do mean it. If any of you would like to come on the show to cook, at the end of the show there's a graphic with my address. Please feel free to call, and we'll talk about it, and we'll see what your favorite is and when we can schedule you to be on. And I sincerely mean that. That's not an open error, just saying it. I really do mean that. Okay, let me get rid of, let's see what else we have to get rid of. Someday we're going to have a sink. That's my prophecy. I don't know when, but someday. This milk is just getting a little scaldy. Let me just put this. See, this is a savory dish. It's cabbage and salt and pepper and with the noodles and all. This next dish is a sweet dish, because there's sugar and honey. And I know this is people that like this, the poppy seed noodles, like the poppy seed noodles. I think we scalded that enough. All that happened here was, let me move this over, was we just scalded the milk a little to get it up and going. And then okay, I have poppy seeds here. Oh, here they are. Now I'm going to mix in the poppy seeds, again, depending on how much you like. And mix them in. I don't know why, but the Hungarians call poppy seeds mock. And so I don't really know where that comes from because I don't speak the language. And the reason I don't speak any Hungarian or any Slovak, like I should, I have to tell you a quick story. My grandmother spoke perfect English. But when she wanted to have control or power in her family, she spoke Hungarian, which meant her son-in-laws and her daughter-in-law couldn't understand her. So this was power. But I thought it was rude. So what happened was, I didn't want to be rude. I'm going to take this off a second. And I thought if I learned to speak another language, I would become rude. So hence, I would never learn Hungarian or Slovak from either of my grandmothers because, again, I didn't want to be rude, and I thought it was rude to speak when people didn't understand you. When everyone did speak this common language, but my grandmother used it as a power thing, I think. Okay, next we have, again, I'm checking my recipe. It's been a long time since instead of milk, and you want to put butter in here, you can do butter to go with the poppy seeds. A lot of these things, if you want the recipes for this, just so not again the amount as much as what you put into it, you can, there's an address at the end of the show and you can send in for these recipes we have here. Okay, now what do I have? Oh, I have the noodles, that's important. I use little flat curly noodles for this because that's traditionally what they use. And what a lot of people like, it's hard to get these up. I use these little flat square noodles for this one. First of all, it's great for this, and also it makes nice chicken pot pie if you want to use this kind of noodle. And they have them readily in the supermarket. What I'm doing is I'm I don't have anywhere to drain this water off, so I'll take me a few seconds and and then what you need to put on this, I'll put it in at the end. I could have put it in before I put the noodles in. But first, let me check this. Oh, this is coming along. Really well. And these are wonderful dishes. There's no meat. They're good for different holidays, for religious holidays, or people that are into being vegetarians and things like that. And yet it's very, very tasty, and it helps fill you up. And most little kids like noodles. You know what I have to do? I'm going to pour this into a bigger frying pan. It just makes it easier to mix around. We may not have water, but we sure have a lot of frying pans around here. And then what I'm going to do is take the, I just bought this because my I don't buy big containers of honey like some people do. I hope I can get this. Oh, here they have a little. Oh. I could do a little different. I'm going to poke it out. If you buy the big containers of honey, the honey it gets crystallizes and it's just not as good that way. So I always buy the small ones. I especially like the squeeze bottle ones because that way you don't have to. You can just guesstimate how much you need. Like this would be 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons. And that way it closes up nice and it stays sealed and it stays in there. Okay, here we have, this is going. I'm going to switch. This isn't something you would necessarily serve at the same time. Again, the sweet with the poppy seed, because of the honey, you can put sugar. If you don't want to put honey, you can just sprinkle sugar in there. And then the savory one with the salt and the pepper and the cabbage, and actually the browner the cabbage one gets, I have to sample, you know. Let's see. This really doesn't take long at all. You know, you can tell that by, and yet it's something that keeps, and it's something that freezes. So, that needs a little more salt. But you can always serve it that way, and people can put the amount of salt they want on it themselves. This is the best part of cooking, you know, the sampling. But again, that's to taste whatever you're looking to. Cook. Let's see what's happening here. You can make this in an electric frying pan. I even know someone tried it in a microwave and it didn't work. I'm going to take my cabbage. Of course, another favorite of the Slav element is filled cabbage. Oh, I'm going to get this in here. That got a little brown, but that's okay. And what I want to do what else do we have here? I'm going to put this here. And what happens with this just seems to, there it is, how could I lose it? It just seems to cook down and cook down. Cook it slower. This is cooking a little fast. But it's just, remember, if you want the recipes for these, you can write to the graphic that is going to come up. It has the address and everything. It's Post Office Box 1660 here in Norristown. And I'll be glad to share them with you. Or if you have any, if you'd like to be on this show, let me know and we'll talk. And don't get hung up or worried about being on TV. We haven't lost anybody yet in all the years we've been doing this. I like, these pots are wonderful for one reason. They get hot, but you can stick them in the oven because of the handles are all a metal piece. So what I'm going to do is maybe get this over here so the camera can get it, I hope. There we go. And a nice thing to serve with this would be, string beans, that sounds like, but you want a nice green, even a nice salad with not a lot of stuff, when it's just a little dressing, a little vinegar, maybe a little olive oil. There you can have your olive oil on your on your salad. But this is, I have dishes. Guess I'll have to find them. So we can all sample this here. Let me just, oh, it's really nice. I know it looks a little brown, but that's the way it's liked. It's thing. So I think I'm going to go, and I'm going to clean up the mess, and we'll see you real soon. And so for Betty Banjack and Look Who's Cooking, bye now.